And welcome back to another episode of the Drunken Cryptids. I'm your host, Matthew Orton, and I do want to say thank you to blademedia.com. Thank you over there to Dylan at blademedia.com for the wonderful website and the graphic. Dylan, I appreciate all the hard work you did. Everybody go check out their website, blademedia.com. That's BLAYED.com. And I want to say thank you to everybody who's been liking and sharing the show and the 5-star reviews and the 5-star ratings. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. That does help me out in the algorithm. And the higher in the algorithm I go, the more content I can create for you guys and the more encounters and more stories we can get out there. So, but we just wrapped up a wonderful, fun weekend. We did our first live show with the Cryptids of the Corn. And the cool thing is that not only were we able to, share the stage with Cryptids of the Corn and get into discussions of, some really cool cryptids and the paranormal, but we also had another podcast come all the way down, Chumming with the Spirits. What a neat show. Definitely give those guys a look and shout out. I mean, go check them out, guys. You're going to love it. It's a great program. They dig into some really interesting topics, and they break it down pretty much as, we would, as everybody would. You're sitting around a fire having a good time. So really similar style to our show here. So definitely give Chumming the Spirits a good shout. Thank you, JD. I had a good time meeting with you and spend the weekend. Again, a shout out to Justin and Jay, Cryptids of the Corn. I had so much fun. Definitely a dream come true. A blast. I could not. Thank you guys very much. Very gracious, very, very humble. These guys over there, Cryptids of the Corn, Justin and Jay, are absolutely amazing. And I have nothing but the highest of respect. And I tip my hat to these guys. Justin helped me out a lot last year when I was getting started, and even prior to me getting started the show, Justin, we would talk, and I was telling him, my ideas, and he was coaching me along. So it was really nice to finally meet him and to hang out, and we hung at the tavern, we drank coffee, we took him around downtown, showed him some sights, and of course, unfortunately, we had severe weather, storms, flash flooding. We got well over 10 inches of rain here while they were here, but they smiled and had a good time, I hope. So thank you guys very much for that one. Real quick events coming up, though. I am going to be a speaker at the Ohio Bigfoot Jamboree 2. That's in Ada, Ohio, on October 4th of this year. Yes, I've been asked to be a headline speaker in the family tent, and I'm very honored to do that. So, we'll be posting a lot of links for that coming up. So if you guys are up in that area, please come on out and check them out. It's put on by the Cryptids of the Corn guys. So there's some other expeditions as well happening, so you guys will be able to see that. I am dropping a new video show, hopefully sometime the next couple of weeks, so you'll be able to hear audio-wise here, on some of your audio platforms, but there'll be a video on YouTube. So I'll do what I can to describe for the listeners, and then for the viewers, you'll be able to see what's going on. It's going to be a neat show, so it's going to be kind of a little different than your usual cryptid stuff, so I'm really excited to do that. And again, of course, the last special shout out I have to give to is to Todd Neese. Thank you for coming down and being a part of the show this weekend. Means a lot to me. Great guy, full of information. I definitely recommend you guys go check his website out. American Primate Preservatory. Excellent guy. Go check him out, guys. But tonight's episode, we have the infamous Thomas Sewid coming on. He is going to break down some of his encounters, what it means, what took place with it, what was going on, his thoughts, his theories, what his tribe thinks, and they believe they are, and goes through. There's a lot of information in this episode, you guys. Thomas was very gracious to come on, very gracious to talk, and it was a lot of fun to be able to visit with him. And we're looking to do some more episodes with him further down the road. He is, he offered on the air to come out, but like I said, he's really great guy. Excellent interview. Looking forward to it. So please do me a favor. Sit back, relax, grab your favorite beverage, and enjoy the show.
Was these two globes. I don't know how to describe them. And I stood up there and looked at them, and it's like,
I just couldn't hold it anymore, and I was like, oh my gosh, I was a chupacabra. I was so excited.
They were referring to Bigfoot.
There were voices in the darkness.
The reason why the show is called
And welcome back to another episode of the Drunken Cryptids. Of course, I got Jacob sitting across from me.
What's up, everybody?
All right. Jacob, welcome back. It's good to have you back.
I know.
All right. I have got an awesome guest coming on for you guys tonight. This guy has been all over the woods. He has been everywhere. He comes from a local tribe that breaks everything down, and Thomas jumps in, and he has had so many encounters with these things. I think you're almost part Sasquatch at this point in time, Thomas, to be honest with you. But everybody, please welcome Thomas Sewid to the show. Thomas, how's it going up there in Canada?
Actually, greetings. Thanks for inviting me on your show. I'm actually in Forks, Washington, out on the upper left corner of Washington State on the Olympic Peninsula. Sasquatch hotspot, definitely one of the best I've seen. And I manage, as of April last year, SasquatchTheLegend.com. It's North America's largest Sasquatch store and museum. And it's great being here because I get to work in this big, huge Sasquatch business, but I also get to do like I did yesterday. Buddy picks me up, and within 10 minutes, we're in the Olympic Peninsula forest, and we're out investigating Sasquatch, laying out trail cameras.
How fun is that?
Oh, it's amazing. You know, it's the best thing. I get paid for it. That's the best part.
Well, isn't that the goal? I mean, eventually for everybody to get paid. I mean, you're living the dream, Thomas. You really are. I mean, but let me ask you a question. Since you are up in that part of the country, what do you think about these two researchers that passed away they found in December? That was in the southern part of the state.
Death, didn't they?
They did what?
They froze, didn't they?
Allegedly. Yeah, well, the only thing that bothers me about the story is these guys drove 150 miles from their home to research an area on Christmas Eve, not paying attention to the weather or anything. And they find them 3 days later. And then here's the funny part, though. That night, after they recovered the two bodies, the search and rescue team for the sheriff's department there had all their equipment stolen as, yeah, somebody cut the fence line, broke in, stole all the equipment. As the the sheriff's report stated, if it wasn't nailed down, it was taken. And they have not released the names or anything yet of these two guys.
Yeah, well, what do you call it? Like Canada, you know, if it's wintertime, freezing conditions, snow on the ground, bush code. Sasquatches, some of them like to eat beans, human beings. So maybe it's being kept hush-hush because they were partially consumed. Because bush code means that if you do take something out, you eat it, especially in winter conditions. So in Vancouver Island, we have a rest stop that all of a sudden was closed. They had big cement blocks in front of the paved entryway off the highway. Cement outhouses ×2, cement picnic tables ×3 or 4, 2 cement garbage cans gone. Just an empty, vacant rest stop behind cement blocks now that nature's reclaiming the asphalt. And then doing some out of the blue, a waitress enlightened us in northern Vancouver Island that a woman was found there, decapitated, left arm removed, body pummeled, clothing still intact. The police told her brother that they suspected that it was a Sasquatch that killed her, and she was driving up at night, pulled into that rest stop, maybe to go to the bathroom or something, and she got killed by one. So, there's so many reports about it, and, it happens. And, when you look at the Indian translation for their name of Sasquatch, numerous tribes, you'll have the term cannibal from the woods, cannibal giant, cannibals from the mountains, and so forth. So if the Indians prior to contact and afterwards are telling everyone that the name of our Sasquatch refers to cannibal, well, it tells you right there what a Sasquatch is. It's tall, it's got 2 legs, 2 arms, bipedal, looks like us, except it's hairier and has black skin or brown skin. So how many black skin and brown skin humans out there? And if you go to the beach in the summer, how many really hairy humans do you see? Because I notice it because I'm an Indian. I'm a thoroughbred. You can count my chest hairs on 2 fingers and you can count my armpit hairs on 10 fingers. I'm a thoroughbred. My wife, 16 years ago, and we got together, Peggy, she accused me of shaving my legs because I had no hair on my legs. And I said, no, I'm a thoroughbred Indian. We don't have body hair. And that's indicative of Sasquatches in the Pacific Northwest. They have the Indian trait, meaning they have a face that's devoid and never will grow a biker beard or look like a hillbilly coming out of moonshine camp in mountains. Our Sasquatches may have a hairy body, but their face is like any other Indian, a real pathetic looking, stubbly face of hair. That's about it. And most of us Indians, if we can grow hair on our face, we shave it off because our beards and mustaches look so pathetic.
Yeah, it comes in all patchy. Yeah, because you guys have the that trait that you don't get the body hair
Yeah.
at all. So through your research and your expeditions and all your many encounters, you're definitely on the side of flesh and blood, actual creatures. You don't think this is coming from Asia Giantpithecus? You don't think it's a relative of that at all?
I wouldn't go that far. When I first met Dr. John Bindernagel, the late Sasquatch old guard who passed away a few years back, me and him were on the belief of Sasquatch in North America came over the Bering Land Bridge during the Ice Ages and was possibly Gigantopithecus. But after I had some close encounters of the hairy kind where I was within, 6 feet of a Sasquatch one time and, within 20 feet of Sasquatch a couple other times, one of the first things I did was look at that face. And even though one of them grimaced at me and gave me that FU look, and I noticed that they had a very human face. So to me, the only difference was black skin, pronounced philtrum, the distance between the upper lip and the bottom of the nose, a bigger jaw, like not like a gorilla, but kind of, a little bit more like Jay Leno, a little bit more defined than most humans. And it had the conical head. And, even my people, the Kwakwaka'wakw Indian tribe from northern Vancouver Island, we have with the Koskomo, which is known now as the Quetzino tribe on the northwest coast of Vancouver Island. They used to cradle board their baby females that were born into high-ranking societies. So they would have a conical sloping forehead skull, which is indicative of our Vancouver Island Sasquatch. And I kind of think that's what they were trying to duplicate, saying that this female was of such high rank and will be of such high standing in the society and tribe, we're going to make them look like a Sasquatch. And then when you look at our whole tribe, Kwakwaka'wakw, otherwise known as Quaggiutl or Quaggiult at one time, our highest ranked crest is Chonakwa, the Sasquatch. And like a Rolex or a Mercedes-Benz, you show it off. So you have it carved on your welcoming totem poles, your interior house posts, your memorial totem poles. You bring it to life in dance and song with a mask carved in cedar wood with puckered lips and sleepy eyes and a fur regalia outfit that sometimes we put wooden breasts on it and side patches with native design. You'll see it in Sasquatch Island, my Facebook group and my website, my regalia of Chonakwa that we perform at Sasquatch conferences and other celebrations. But the Sasquatch, to my people, being the highest ranked crest, when I went to my elders, and I still do, even though I'm a 60-year-old elder now, but, I'll ask them, what's your view on it? Oh, well, they're just, the other tribe, they're out there. What do you do if you run into one? Oh, speak Kwakwala to them. Speak your language. They understand. And I heard that with other Indian tribes as well. And I even witnessed it with the Omaha Indian tribe where they were, aho, Sitonga, hello, Sasquatch. And it would answer back in something that I didn't understand. And, it was pidgin communication, but it was still communication between an Indian tribe member and their local Sasquatches. So when I researched that even deeper with other Indian tribes and came up with a very interesting YouTube clip from the Squamish First Nation north of Vancouver, British Columbia, where this counselor from the tribe was being interviewed. And he said that their tribe members would, if they needed a shaman, because back in the old days, a shaman might be killed by an animal or warfare or disease. And if there was no other shaman, someone would step up and say, I'm going to go and learn. And they would disappear from the village and go into the forest and live and interact with the Sasquatches, sometimes for months, if not years. And when they returned after their Jane Goodall, Diane Fossey interaction with Sasquatches, as the Omaha term for Sasquatch, Sitonga, translates to English, meaning keeper of the medicine, that tribe member would bring the understanding of the medicinal plants and remedies from the Sasquatches. And so researching on that, opening that door up and researching even further, I was being taught by a female shaman and from one of the native Indian tribes of central United States. And as she was teaching me about all kinds of things, I mentioned to her, I said, I saw two Sasquatches walking across that field towards that house over there. And her son said, oh, that's our house. We live there. And I said, why was a pregnant female Sasquatch about 6.5 feet tall and a big male mate, probably around 7'4", walking through that field towards your house? And she said, well, I'm a shaman. I pick plants from root to the top. And, not very big, but I'll put them on a table and then put offerings of food out. At nighttime, Sitonga, the Sasquatch, will come and pick what is, in that season, what is used for medicine, be it the root, the bark, the cambium layer inside the bark, the leaves, the buds, the flowers. They'll leave it on the table and sweep everything off. And that's where I know that, okay, at this particular time of the year and season, that is a medicine. Then I have to go ask other shamans and other things, what would we use this for? And that's how we get the understanding. So what I'm enlightening people about and educating them is, when you want to go find Sasquatch, everyone, we all go charging to the conferences to try to get understanding and closure. Well, we need to go to our local Indian tribe from the area where we're going to investigate and get a friendship going and communicate with the local Indians and find out how to say hello, I come in peace, I leave food for you, goodbye, or go in peace. Like my language is halakilasla, go in peace. Yo, weeksess, hello, how you doing? I don't know who you are. And so in your area, and I've heard it from a couple people, tribe members mainly, that, yeah, the Sasquatch and the humans still can communicate at pigeon level to one another. And that's how we're going to hopefully get that Diane Fossey, Jane Goodall interaction and get conclusive proof of the existence of Sasquatch.
I like that. I really do. I agree with you on that one, on getting with the local native tribes, because they're the, in my opinion, they're the ones who are going to know. When, the settlers were coming across and pushing everybody out and taking over the property and land, they ignored the traditions, they ignored the local customs, and they completely just disregarded the local people, period, and left a lot of cryptids and a lot of some of these paranormal encounters here for people to discover. And then people do go charging off in the woods, and they are just out there, they're banging on, trees, and they're doing whoops and everything. And my favorite quote was, how do you know you're not doing a mating call? And what are you going to do if you have a bull come charging in thinking that you're a female? That's just my little joke about it.
Well, there. Number one, tree knocking. When a Sasquatch tree knocks, if it's just a tap, 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 it's Morse code communicating with other Sasquatches from its clan or family, or bang, 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 or one loud one. Maybe they're parlaying. They're passing through someone else's territory because they saw a tree structure or whatever, or scent, and they've make that noise or vocalize so that the other Sasquatches that are from that tribe can come up to them and communicate. We're just passing through. We want to go up to the mountain ranges where our clan has territory. So when you study Sasquatch, you study your local Indian tribe, and you'll find the anthropological understanding of that Indian tribe will correlate with your local Sasquatches. So in my territories throughout Pacific Northwest, when you were in a canoe paddling from northern Vancouver Island to what is called what do you call it, Sea of Cortez, Mexico or Panama, we used to go down south and up north and everything. But when you came into some other one person's territory and you saw their canoes, we pound our paddles 4 times on the gunnels and we hold the blades up, and it signifies that we come in peace. So the pounding noise to the Indian tribes, and we still do it during our canoe journeys. And, that's something that's thousands of years old. But when a Sasquatch, bang, 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 what they're telling you is stop, turn around, and go back where you come from. I was taught that when I was a young boy, when I was learning how to go out on boats and shellfish, dig and fish and hunt. We were taught, if you ever hear tree knocking, you stop, turn around, and go back where you came from. That's Tunach telling you that we're here right now. We don't want you here. And if you go to a shellfish beach, you look, and if you see broken cockle shells, a type of shellfish, which is a delicacy to humans and Sasquatches, and Bukwus, the little people. But anyway, if you see the broken cockle shells in a pile or just in a concentrated area, you leave. You go to another beach and dig, because the Sasquatch is telling you, we're harvesting shellfish here at nighttime when the big low tide comes. And it's all about respect. So when non-Indians go into the forest, and you got to look at BFRO, with their finding, finding Bigfoot. BFRO stands for Bang Forest Research Organization. They're banging away for 14 seasons, my good friend Cliff and Bobo, and they never did find the Sasquatch. They got some blurry stuff in that, but they never did get that really on the cover of National Geographic photograph or video.
Right.
And it was because they're always tree knocking. They're, it'd be like walking into someone's house and banging the coffee table and say, get the hell out of here. I want to sit and watch TV and drink beer. You don't do that. So why would you go in the bush into Sasquatch's home and bang on a tree and tell it to stop, turn around, go back where you come from? The Sasquatch is scratching his head going, stupid hairless bipedal creatures banging around. I'm not going to go near them. They're too stupid. And that's why people who bang on trees never see Sasquatches.
We, be honest with you, I have never banged on a tree, nor will I ever bang on a tree. And I stress that to my team that we do not do tree knocks.
No.
If we hear tree knocks, that's one thing. We're not going to, because, they're going to know it's not from them. They're going to know it's going to be a bat or something other than, or an axe handle. And, they already know that we're there, but we're not trying to scare them off or, imitate them in any way to try. They're not ducks, they're not deer. We're not using calls to bring them in. And that's where, a lot of people, I think, do get the misconception at, and I think you're absolutely right there. When we go out, we're going into their living room. We're going to, be polite. And that's what, me and my team do when we go out there. And, I don't know the local native language that was here before us. So, but I go out there, and even when I go out there, I announce my presence. Hey, I'm here. If you want to come and say hi, come on out. And when I'm done, I say thank you and leave, even if I had no encounter.
So back in the day, we had, I guess you could say in my language, Gila. He was the traveler, the supernatural one. And we have, every family has stories about Gila, the traveler, and the exploits of his traveling, be it good or bad. But it tells you that, and we have stories, and we even have a song about our warriors going so far south exploring that they would find the eternal summer, and they would find cedar trees covered in thorns. And at that place, they would be at the wintering home of Clayum, the baleen whale. That's the Sea of Cortez. That's where the gray whales go. And the cedar trees on shore with thorns, we didn't have a name for cactus. And eternal summers, well, Mexico down there is always hot. But when we came across other Indian tribes, they didn't speak Kwakala, nor would we speak their language. But because of all the travelers, the North American Indians came up with what's referred to as Chinook jargon or Chinook trade language. So that in the old days, I could go across Sasquatch Island, North America, and when I run into an Indian, I just say, Klahowya, and put my hand up. How you doing? And all of a sudden they ask you, where are you going? I want to, in the Chinook dialect, I would say whatever the words are, and I would end with the Eastern Skookumchuck, the Eastern big salty water. I want to go see it because I've heard about it. So that Chinook trade dialect was used all over North America. And when contact came, the explorers and fur trappers and the people looking for minerals, they would learn that dialect and be able to communicate to the different Indian tribes. Number one, being able to say, Klahowya, how you doing? I come in peace. You don't want to get killed by an Indian because you're in their territory and you're a newcomer. So they would learn the Chinook dialect, but they would also incorporate into the Chinook dialect some of their words, hence cabbage, kapusta, and carrot, karat, money, moolah. And so what I'm educating people is go to the internet, go to your libraries, order the Chinook trade dialect. You can still buy it and learn it so that when you are, whether in Tennessee or Arkansas or Northern California or British Columbia, Canada, and you do come close to a Sasquatch where you either see it or you smell it, maybe try speaking a Chinook trade dialect to it. And that's what I'm trying. I haven't had any close encounters since I came up with that idea. But, there's a campground right here on the Olympic Peninsula. I was surprised when I came here 4 years ago. It's called Klahowya Campground. And yet Klahowya Campground is notorious for Sasquatch encounters, stealing coolers of food, vocalization, being seen, shaking campers and trailers and poking tents. So it's kind of intriguing that a campground called Klahowya, welcome, and is in an area of high Sasquatch activity. So like I say, try using that. Try learning a few more Chinook dialects and your local Indian tribe, and hopefully you'll get that close encounter of the hairy kind with them.
That's excellent advice for anybody out there wanting to go do this stuff. And I'm adding that to my packing list, to be honest with you, to go out there and try this stuff now. Because I'm going on another expedition on the 19th of next month here locally. So in a hot spot with a lot of vocalizations, even with some spirals in the ground, which was really neat. We had this encounter. We had spirals in the leaves, not on the dirt, but just the leaf litter drew these like a 30-meter radius of this perfect spiral.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I've never heard that before. So studying archaeology for years, because it was kind of one of my great interests and still is, we know of the pictographs and petroglyphs of spirals that are indicative of all three Americas. And I've seen them in my own territories. And yet we always come up with the conclusion of the knowledge of what the spiral represents. We don't know. And I kind of suspect, because of what we're seeing now on the social media, the spirals in the sky, I think it's just a portal, because of into a different dimension. But how are we going to get the conclusive proof? Well, number one, we're going to have to go through one and come back and say that's what a spiral is. I don't think that's going to happen. But maybe if we do have an interaction with Sasquatch and build that communication, we'll ask them, what does a spiral mean? And maybe we'll get our understanding of what a spiral is back again. And maybe it will be a porthole. Who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because the Anastasies are, their tribe, they had numerous spirals. And, I mean, their history itself is fascinating, how one day they were here, and then they were gone. There's no actual fade away. There's no, traveling or moving on. It was they were here and then gone and left behind numerous relics. I mean, the cave dwellings themselves out there in Mesa Verde are absolutely amazing to see.
Oh, yeah.
Of what they accomplished and what they did. And there's so many theories. They built them there. They would, farm up above on the plateaus. they would do this, but numerous spirals, and they were also known as like star people and stuff as well.
Well, my grandmother, Flora Sewid, when she was alive, when I was a teenager, and I was driving my pickup truck, I go down to Grassy Point behind Alert Bay during the summer when I was up on my birthplace island, and most of the community is Native Indian. But anyway, while I was up there, we go to Grassy Point and, smoke a few hoolies and bring girls down there. And my grandmother, when she asked me where were you last night? Oh, I was down in Grassy Point. I went down there in the afternoon, barbecued a salmon. We just hung out there till about 11 o'clock when I came home. You don't go to Grassy Point. I'm like, why not? And I said, it's not burial ground, is it? She goes, no. When I was a young girl, we were told never go to Grassy Point on the north side of Alert Bay, Cormorant Island. But we went down there anyway, me and my friends, and we were just young girls, maybe 10 to 12 years old, 13. And she goes, all of a sudden, our hair felt like, when you pull a wool sweater off at wintertime, staticky. And I said, and she goes, yeah, that feeling. That's what all our hair felt like. And we looked up and we could hear this like crackling, sizzling. And we looked up and there was a rainbow spiral just sitting there above the beach, just above the treetops. And the trees are about probably 80 feet high down there. And she goes, we just turned and ran back and told our parents and her mother, Agnes Alford, the famous Kwakwaka'wakw elder. She's passed now, but she was my great-grandmother. She was sitting there, and she verified that. I gave Flora trouble that she shouldn't go down to Grassy Point because supernatural things happen. But I think my grandmother witnessed a portal opening up back there.
That's exactly what it sounds like from other descriptions of it. That's amazing.
And that's, a lot of stories. Like I'm working on an art piece right now about breaking tradition. So being a native artist, what I'm doing is I'm doing a Thunderbird, but he's in a position like Freddie Mercury, the famous picture of Freddie Mercury with the white pants and white muscle shirt with the microphone, and he's all splayed out with his hand up.
Yeah.
I'm doing it in that form, but I'm painting the Thunderbird like instead of being black, red, and white with an orange bill like we traditionally do with our native art. I'm going to make it all rainbow pastel colors. And my grandmother's told me that, this is wrong how we make the Thunderbird, Quiquigwanala. It actually was colorful like a rainbow. And I said, do you think that's what you saw on Grassy Point? She goes, maybe, but we turned and ran away. Maybe it was transforming from what we saw, the swirl, and it was going to transform into Quiquigwanala, Thunderbird. I don't know, but I ran away. But we do have stories that say the Thunderbird, Quiquigwanala, was really rainbowish color and all that. And so when I do the painting, I'll have that Freddie Mercury position Thunderbird all colorful. And then I'm going to have humans all around, or animals all around it, and humans with their fists up and angry faces like they're mad at the Thunderbird and the artists for breaking tradition and making it black, red, and white with an orange bill. Or someone might look at it and interpret it as saying breaking tradition. They're out, the Thunderbird's out of the closet and it's posturing and representing homosexuality. No, that's not what it is. I'm breaking tradition means the artists are breaking tradition. It's the Thunderbird is supposed to look like a rainbow and all colorful.
That will be neat.
How the hell did we get out in left field? We're supposed to be talking about Sasquatch.
That's kind of what we do here. It's just a great conversation piece, and just like sitting around the fire and having a discussion. That's how we do it here. But I want to go back to a couple things. So because you were talking about the Omaha tribe, they were referring to them as the keeper of the medicine, and your tribe was referring to them as like cannibal people.
No, my tribe I said other tribes. My tribe, Jonachwa, means, when I asked my cultural advisor, a very famous Kwakwaka'wakw artist from Alert Bay, I said, Joe, wild woman in the woods. That's what Jonachwa translates to. But I know, because I've seen it at Potlatch, where the male mask is put onto the new chief with the mustache and the goatee. And you see the masks in the museums and the art books and the galleries. I said, and I know it has a different name than Jonachwa, because Jonachwa refers to the female Sasquatch. And he said the name of the male. I just can't remember what it is now, but it's on my Facebook group, and you can go to the Umista Cultural Center website, umista.org, umista.org, and you'll see the name of the male Sasquatch. But he said, yeah, I know. He goes, it got lost in translation. You know, if someone who wasn't Indian was interviewing our people, probably Boaz, and said, you know, what's your word for Sasquatch? And the person said, Chonach, a wild woman of the woods. And that sort of the generic name for the Kwakwaki walk, all of our Sasquatches. It isn't. The male has its own name altogether. But anyway, he said I guess it should have been translated as Chonach, meaning like Shrek, the ogres, male and female of the forest. That's how he explained it to me. So, but other tribes do refer to cannibalism. Well, even us, you know, I've heard elders say, "Oh, you got to watch out for Chonach. She's a cannibal. She's gonna, when you're young and you're misbehaving, she's watching, and she's not allowed to touch children. But if the child misbehaves and is whiny, lazy, temper tantrum, stealing, fighting, then Chonach is gonna come and." With big hairy arm when they're sleeping, she's going to grab them or grab them when they're fighting outside, and she's going to rub tree sap from the spruce tree, like it's real thick tar syrup like stuff, put it in their eyes so they can't open their eyes and they're blind. And she's going to throw the bad children either in her sack or the basket on her back, and she's going to carry them deep into the forest where she's going to boil them up and eat them. She lives in an invisible home. That's why we can't find Sasquatch. And other families have stories like one of my, they're cousins, family of ours, but their story is, he mentions it in one of the videos we recorded them on, and you'll see it on Sasquatch Island, my Facebook group. But he talks, and even my website, you can go see the Sizzler video there, and he talks about how the Chonach is said to have children's heads on sticks outside its house. And, you know, and then you hear that term cannibal with a lot of native tribes. So, you know, I looked into it and I thought, you know, are all Sasquatches bean eaters, human bean eaters? No, there's a lot of stories, the majority that they're friendly and, you know, they just curious. And then there's the majority that are elusive. They just see humans and want to get away. And I don't blame them. You know, I don't want to be around quite a few humans either.
I'm the same way.
Yeah, but, you know, then you have the odd ones that talk about the consuming of people going missing. And what I found, and that's where the rogue comes in, rogue Sasquatch. And I got a great understanding from Lucas White and others in the Omaha Indian Reserve about rogues. And then I interviewed more Indian tribes about the hunter-killer cannibal Sasquatches. And what I've come to the conclusion of is in 2007, I was sued for $640,000. I lost my $250,000 aluminum tour boat, my house that was almost paid off, over 80 grand liquid in the banks taken overnight. My sea kayak fleet worth $67,000 confiscated by the sheriffs as well. And then 8 months later, after moving up to northern British Columbia with the mother of my children, my mate, she pointed to the door and told me to get the beep out. And when I left on the ferry with my possessions, I could fit in my Jeep Cherokee, my guns, my carving tools, my fishing gear, and my clothes and my art books. I thought as I left on the ferry, my children who are 4 and 6 will never live under my roof permanently again, because there's two things we Indians fear. Police take our parents, social workers take our children. And my ex is a social worker who's not Indian. So I knew I would never have my children under my roof. So I had lost everything. And when I returned to Vancouver Island, I had $11 in my pocket. And I was driving my overloaded Jeep Cherokee into Campbell River. And I had one thought on my mind. I was going to find those two SOBs that sued me, and I was going to do something bad. Revenge was going to be served. And when I pulled into Campbell River with that hate building and that angst and that, as I belonged to the Hamat Society, the Cannibal Society, that rage of cannibalism that I wanted to do away with these two SOBs, I pulled up to the street light, and there's this hotel where the manager was a Christian who had a monthly quote that he would put on the billboard outside. And the lit background and the billboard, it said, "Success is not defined on how high you reach, but how high you bounce when you've hit rock bottom." I thought about that for a few hours as I was storing my possessions at a family member's basement. And I said, you know what? Heck with those two SOBs. I'm going to bounce. And I've been bouncing ever since. But I was that close, a hair away from crossing over into the abyss and going postal and going rogue. I was going to let hate, anger, I was going to let it control me to do bad. And that's why when you look at the rogue Sasquatch, and you'll find in some places killing grounds where there's maggot covered carcasses, bones all over the place, the stench of death, holes that the Sasquatch has dug when he hides in to jump on animals or birds to kill them. And sure, he eats a lot of them, but most of them it's just the kill of the fact of the enjoyment of killing. Psychopath. So I've been there almost. And I know what a rogue Sasquatch, when all of a sudden Bush code, the code of the creator kicks in, where every pack leader male will be toppled, be it a wolf, alpha wolf, lion, big male lion, coyote, hyena. The head male will always be not hyenas, the females are high in the rank there. But anyway, the head male will always have a younger, stronger male challenge him, and in one case, topple him, if not kill him. But the one Sasquatch that gets toppled, he's can't go near the family no more. Can't go near his wife, his children, the clan. He's ostracized. And he can just pick the scraps of what they kill. Well, some of them just go solo. And some of them go postal when they go solo. They snap. They become a psychopath, and they just want to kill for the enjoyment of killing and eating. And what's the dumbest animal on the planet and easiest to catch and kill? A human. And that's the cannibal Sasquatch. They've gone postal on us. And those are the ones you have to fear. Fear the rogue.
One, I can relate to the anger and the hatred that you felt by those, towards those two people. I myself have two people that I felt that way towards. And like you as well, I decided to bounce back. And by bouncing back, I have become more successful at what I'm doing versus that. But the rogue squatch thing is, because I've been trying for years to figure out what could be triggering some of these rogue squatches on, their behavior of cannibalism, of attacking, beings and going after them. I had a thought one point in time of rabies, maybe they contracted rabies or something, because most of the stories that you get from the natives when it comes to Sasquatch they are, helpful beings. They are peaceful beings. They are, protectors of the woods. They're, like medicine, everything you were talking about earlier. And then the cannibals come in and you get these other reports of being attacked. And you wonder a lot of the 411 cases of people in the woods disappearing. And even as we talked about at the beginning of the show, these two researchers, if they did encounter a rogue at that time, the winter time, maybe food is a little scarce there in December and took advantage. Because what you'll find, I think, fascinating about that county these two guys were found in, they were researching in, has a law in that county that protects mythological creatures to where you can get $1,000 fine and up to a year in jail if you harm them.
Yeah.
So, maybe that's like what they did encounter was this rogue. And, yeah, that's fascinating.
And like you just said, you're trying to find a higher understanding of Sasquatch. So with people that come into SasquatchLegend.com store, I always get the two main questions. You mean there's more than one in North America? Give me a head of shit. Of course, there's more than one, and there's probably close to 250,000 throughout Sasquatch Island, North America. That's what I figure based on a formula that we used in British Columbia, Vancouver Island, for establishing how many Sasquatches in a given tribal territory. But anyway, getting back to understanding, and the other question I get is, what do they eat out there? And I'm like, what would you eat? And, oh, I would eat this and that. And I'm like, well, Sasquatches are human. First thing you have to do to get better understanding of Sasquatch is get off your soapbox and your superiority complex of being the smartest animal on the planet. You're actually the dumbest one, the human. But the human, we take for granted that we have people that were referred to as yellow skin people at one time, black skin people, Aborigines. At one time, we didn't know these different colored humans were out there until we started getting on our sailing ships and traveling and walking across ice land bridges during ice ages. But then all of a sudden, we take for granted that there's Aborigines, people from Africa, and then the list goes on. And can you imagine what it would be like if we jumped in a porthole 800 years ago and me from northern Vancouver Island jumped in a porthole and showed up in northern Australia and seen Aborigines? And then I jumped in the portal again and I showed up in downtown, what would be called Singapore, and I see Chinese people. I go through the portal and I end up in what would be called Sweden, and I see blonde-haired, blue-eyed people. And all of a sudden, I jump through again. I'm in Lake Victoria, Africa, and I see black people. I'd probably go into shock and pass out because I couldn't understand it, why there was these different colored humans. Well,
and not only different colored humans, but also different buildings, different structures, different everything.
Yeah. And that's why with Sasquatch is people can't accept, because they have that superiority complex where they, Sasquatch, is it an ape? Is it a monkey, orangutan? It's a human. And, looking at them as a human and answering your questions and putting your thought process into their humans, like me. I play bush chess with Sasquatches. If I get a good sighting report, I'll go into that area. I'll pull my garbage bags doubled up with my neutralized, non-scented clothing and shoes included, socks, underwear, pants, t-shirt, hoodie, baseball cap. It's neutralized. There's no detergents or smells or anything like that. They're actually in a bag full of cedar boughs. So they take on the smell of cedar and sometimes I'll throw spruce boughs in there. So having the neutralized clothing, when I go into the bush, I lick my finger and hold it up. I figure out the windage. I use the windage to my advantage. I look at my terrain I'm going through and I test the wind constantly in case it swirls on me. And I don't walk upright. I'm crawling tree to tree, stump to stump, crawling through the ferns, looking and gazing. And in 3 encounters with Sasquatch, I actually saw their backs. They knew I was around. They were looking for me, smelling for me. And all of a sudden I come up, I'm behind them. And no, I didn't pack a camera and I didn't have cell phones back in the day when I was out in bush. I was just having fun. I was playing bush chess, and lo and behold, I snuck up on a Sasquatch. Now that I'm 60, bad leg, I'm still doing it. I got close to 2 in the first week of May last year when I first moved to Forks. And yesterday I was out with Buddy, and I thought, no, he's too big and he's got rubber boots on. We can't bush chess out today, but I'm going to teach him. Wear these type of shoes, neutralize your clothing, smells, and him and I are going to go out. And we're both smokers, so we got to quit smoking for 48 hours, and that's going to be tough.
Well, I'll be honest with you, as a smoker myself, I don't know if I could do that for 48 hours. So I'm impressed you can do that.
Oh, yeah. I'm not looking forward to it, but what the heck?
I would probably like, oh no, snap. I'm looking at Jacob. He's like shaking his head. Yeah, I would snap if I couldn't smoke. Yeah, believe it or not, though, with the neutralization of the clothing, that was what I did in the service as well. I would do the same thing, for the field deployments and everything. No detergents, nothing like that. I would neutralize my uniforms.
That's why you guys, Americans, got their butts kicked in Vietnam.
We did.
You
Yep.
guys wearing Brute and what do you call it? What's that other one? Old
Old
Spice.
Spice. Yep. Brute and
Yeah,
Old Spice.
and,
Why would you
and
wear that in the junk? Like
Aqua Velva. That's what the Viet Cong. That's all they did was use their nose. They could smell you guys coming.
yeah, like our first expedition that we went out on. I told the team this. I said, okay, nobody's wearing deodorant, right? And I actually had one guy go, I'm wearing deodorant. I was like, why? Okay, let's rehash this again. And it's for that reason right there. It's that I don't have the skills that you have, obviously, because you have years and years and years of skills with this added into it. But my mindset is like you said earlier too. They knew you were there, and then I look at when we go to the woods, they know we're there, and I'm not trying to do any harm, so I will speak in English, and I'll be like, hey, we're just here to check y'all out. Say hi if you're here. Great. And then when we're done, I say, hey, thank y'all for letting us come out. We're out of here. Even if it's just a hike through the woods over at our local mountain, Pinnacle Mountain here, I do the same thing. So I love that neutralization and playing chess with them. I think that's awesome. I really do. I do got one question, though, because I got to go all the way back to the beginning real quick. Because I got a weird picture on by accident on one of our investigations. So when you go into you're talking about the human, they have a human-like face. Would you say they have a prominent nose or a flat nose or both?
Look at your local Indian tribe. That same type of nose. You'll notice, like with the Mayans, their art, and even when you're in downtown Forks, and you see it's referred to as a Hispanic person, but you notice that female has a very prominent Mayan or Aztecan type of nose. And so with the local Indian tribe, like Yakima, I was noticing that a lot of the Yakima Indians had a more slender, pointier nose than what I was accustomed to on the coast. Because I have, I guess, I refer to when I used to be FBI, friggin' big Indian, I weighed 240 pounds. I used to look like those, I think it's Costa Rica where they find those big round heads carved. Yeah, well, that's what I looked like at that time. That's my nose. And then if you want to know the shape of my nose, it's like those. Because my cousins used to tease me when they're kids. They'd look at National Geographic. Hey, Tommy, look, they carved your chubby face down in this country.
Oh, that's hilarious. I am about to send you this picture that we got by accident on Facebook Messenger, just sent. And in the circled area, it's a red circle. If you zoom in, can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, we caught that by. So Chris, who was one of my researchers, took a picture of the bent over tree. And in the top left, you can see, and I posted this picture on Facebook before, but in the top left, you see that's actually a hunting blind that's been tipped over, and that's what we're focused on. The an AI program kept saying for this picture that there was a person or an animal in this. And a buddy of mine in Michigan, who you've been on his show before, Eric from Uncomfortable, he found this is what he pulled up and wanted to know what that was. And that's the picture that we have. And that nose just looks so prominent right there.
Yeah, I can't really make. Yeah. See, to me, I would just, when I look at it, when it's not zoomed in, it looks to me like something like a Sasquatch in the background peeking from behind that tree, but also using the big tree on the right. As it's kind of looking through the V of trees. That's what I see. And then I blow it up, I get more of a pareidolia type of thing.
Right. Now I'm going to send you, because I teach my guys, you always take more than one picture. When you take a picture of something, you take more than one. So This is, I'm pulling it up right now. Let me scan through, find out where it went. Okay, so here is a same spot, different, because you can see the blind, the hunting blind. Let's see. Oh, wait, is that the same one? That's the one that's not. Yeah, okay, hang on a second. All right, I gotta do this again. I apologize. Welcome to the Drunken Cryptids. This is kind of what we do. Raw and unscripted. I'm having a good time. All right, let me get back to those pictures again. I just sent you the same one, but without it being circled. Hang on a second. Where'd it go? My phone. I'm not tech savvy, smart enough to like categorize my pictures like everybody else is able to do. Let's see here. I just passed it. There we go. And this one. Okay. There you go. Yeah, this one, if you look, you'll see the structure. And you see the bent tree and the same area of where we were looking at, and there's nothing there. And these were taken within seconds apart.
Yeah, so that previous ones, it's definitely it's a Sasquatch using the V of the trees. And yeah, but it's so blurry and everything. Then that one, to me, I would just throw that one out as pareidolia. And, and that's one of the things Dr. John Bindernagel taught me is when in doubt, throw it out, move on. Because, and you see it with social media, someone will post a picture of Fraud Standing's Muppets. Oh, these are real Sasquatches. And the next thing you know, there's 256 comments in the thread. And it's just the same old bash and smash and people fighting because I believe in Fraud Standing and he's the god and he captured Sasquatch. No, he's Fraud Standing. He's so full of BS. His eyes are brown. Just made Muppets. His first one, we cut the ass hairs off his dog and glued it to his face. Let's move on from that. So that's why I always say when you get pictures like this, if it isn't, crispy clear, just file it and, move on and try to get the crispy one. Like I got a picture where a Sasquatch knocked my trail camera out of a rotten cedar stump that was about 5 foot high. And that's because I never use nylon straps or bungees on my trail cameras because you'll never capture a Sasquatch because you break the bush pattern of putting a horizontal line out there. So anyway, it knocked it off the stump. When I was looking at reviewing the pictures on it, you could see the trees spinning where it, got knocked, hit the ground, landed on its back. And the last picture of 6 pictures is the Sasquatch leaning in with its right arm, looking into the trail camera on the ground. But it's a blob squatch. You can see the eyes, you can see the nose, you can see the chimpanzee colored brown face, you can see the big shoulder and massive muscle structure in the shoulder, but it's a blurry one. So, I posted it once, and of course, all of the peanut gallery had to act up, and I probably blocked about 8 people for being idiots. But, it's something I have. And, when people ask me, oh, what pictures you got? Well, I got a trail camera picture. I got 3 minute, 40 seconds, one walking in daylight in Omaha Indian Reserve. I got the 60-minute, 40 seconds video of one out in the Shellfish Beach where we were video recorded it with Adam Davies with Fleur. And, I show people those, and then I show them the multitude of pictures I've pulled from the internet where, whether it be Facebook or even TikTok nowadays or websites, when I see that picture that, okay, that's intriguing. So I don't say it's a Sasquatch. I just put it into the folder, but I mark it as with a question mark. And then like one of them where that Sasquatch is in the water dragging a dead deer, I was like, wow, that's pretty intriguing. I better put that in the folder with a question mark. It was 3.5 years later when someone came forward with the backstory that it came from a movie from the 1970s. And then right away it gets question mark gets erased from the picture and movies image. So I can show people, here's the folder of the question mark intriguing ones that I think are Sasquatches, and here's the folder of ones that were verified to be man-made, human-made. So, and it's when in doubt, throw it out. You can't keep the stuff that isn't, pretty, what I call, real crispy. It's there.
No, I get that. Yeah, that's like the only one we have.
Yeah.
So that's why, and the only reason why that one even stood out, we weren't looking at all, and it was the AI program kept pulling up saying, because the other picture where you don't see it is saying that, yeah, there's an animal in this picture, or one AI program said an animal, one AI program said a person. And that's when we started digging in and looking, and that's when we're like, oh, okay, there's something in here. Then we compare it to the other photo, and there was nothing in that one. And that's the reason why that's the question mark. If you notice that, yep, this question mark, we don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's like Scott with Squatch America. You know, he showed me a phenomenal one where when he's out investigating at night, especially, he'll turn around with flash and take a picture with the camera, cell phone. And, you know, of course, every one of them are just lit up forest from the flash, except for one time had a Sasquatch crouching on the ground. You can see I think it's its left arm that's out, giving it some support as it's on its crouching, but it's following him. And, you know, that was a really good picture, real crispy. And then, you know, I've seen a few others. We were at a conference in Washington State probably 8 years ago. And this woman and guy came up and said, here, you guys want to see this? And I was with some other friends of mine that are well-known investigators. And damn, that was the cover of National Geographic picture of a Sasquatch, if there ever was one. And nope, we're not going to share it. We don't want people on our property, and we don't want people hunting it. We don't even want people to know what part of the state this is.
You know, I'm glad you brought that part up. I'm glad you brought that up right there. And you're hitting the nail on the head. A lot of people want to know why that we're not getting these clear pictures out. I think that's the reason why, is the people who do have them, they are keeping it private. Like the property that we got this picture on, we have a structure there as well. I think it's a hunting blind. The way it's set up and everything, there's 2 game trails that run parallel on both sides of this, and it's located perfectly. For a hunter, and I think that's what the structure's for. The owner of the property doesn't want any location being spoken about, doesn't want to talk about it. And here's the interesting fact about this property as well, though, is it's been passed down through generations. That was purchased after the Civil War, to where the grandfather, he would come home, you know, he'd get done and go in the woods hunting. That's how they gather their food back in the day, obviously. And he'd be like, yep, I saw the shadow people again. That's what he was referring to them as shadow people. And he does not want anybody up there at all. We were lucky enough to be able to go up there the few times that we were able to get in there. And it's completely respectable, because he doesn't want the same thing. He doesn't want a circus of people, circus of cameras, people trying to hunt and kill these things just for proof. And I think that you hit the nail right on the head for people. They want to know why there's not more crystal evidence of these beings, is because of that right there. People are keeping them private. I mean, if I got a crystal clear picture of one, I'm sure I'd have every news thing, everything beating down the door and wanting to know where it's at. And of course, all these TV shows want me to take them up there for the same reason. Now, if it's a national forest, totally different scenario, but on somebody's property, absolutely not.
Yeah, it's like me and Peggy, my wife. You know, I've always said, you know, because we know cell phones are Big Brother, listening and recording devices for Big Brother.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I always say when I get up to where our condo is in Kent, Washington, when we get up to Fred Meyer grocery store and gas station, I look at the price. Oh, look at that, Peggy. Gas went down because of Trump. 3.96 a gallon. Well, 3.96 times a million buys my silence. I'll never talk about or investigate Sasquatch ever again in my life. And, you know, I know I'm, you know, got red flags and everything by Big Brother that, you know, Tom's got a pretty good understanding of Sasquatch. You know, he's actually really hitting the nail on the head. And, you know, Trump is in and gas is going down. He's saying, you know, Forks gas is $4.23 a gallon. That's 4.23 million. We're going to pay him. Let's wait a few months. Maybe by the fall, gas will be around $2.90. Then we can pay him his 2.9 million and shut him up. You know, because he's educating too many people at Sasquatch, because we do not want the third indigenous tribe of the United States identified next to the Inuit, the North American Indian, and now the next indigenous tribe, Sasquatch. Well, in Canada, we got First Nations, us Indians, Inuit up north, And what you guys call Cherokee, the mixed bloods, we call Métis, they now have indigenous status as of 5 years ago. And the fourth one will be Sasquatch. Well, we indigenous tribes, we cost those two countries billions of dollars each year. So God forbid the government wants another one. And as soon as Sasquatch is identified, it will affect the GOP. And that's already in bad shape right now, the way things are going on the economy. Can you imagine if all of a sudden environmentalists step in and laws are created that rancher who has so many thousand acres, he wants to go cut down 50 hectares of his timber, sell it, and open up alfalfa pastures because the Saudi Arabians are paying $200 a bale? Well, no, he's not going to be able to cut one tree down now, nor anyone else in Sasquatch Island, North America, because there's going to be Sasquatch environmental studies that have to be conducted and permitting and red tape that's going to bog things down, and logging, mining, fracking, pipelines, urban development are going to come to a screeching halt, and that will affect the GOP. So there's a reason why the government's out there machine gunning Sasquatches from their military helicopters with high-end FLIRs. And that's why there's an increase of urban edge Sasquatches. I was just investigating tree breaks and footprints right here at the edge of Forks City. So, there's a reason why the Sasquatches are coming in from the deep bush, because the government's out there with the high-end helicopters killing them. There was a video that was just released to social media last week. I picked it up. I got it in my phone now. But I was in Eastern Washington 6 years ago, and I sat down and watched that video shown to me. And of course, I wanted a copy, but nope, it was snuck out. These people are still with the military. We don't want this image getting out. And now it's been released because I had to get a hold of the guy and say, hey, is that the same? That's the same video you showed me 6 years ago. He goes, yeah. So anyway, we're investigating whether or not it's real or not. But after I looked at that video 6 times, I handed his cell phone back and I said, that's Sasquatch. After the screen went to snow, it was killed, wasn't it? And he goes, yeah. He goes, that's why I wanted you to see it. I heard you on a podcast, and your hypotheses about the government killing Sasquatches seems to be true. And then when you look at the Gatling gun, what was the Gatling gun invented for? To eradicate Indians so they could develop North America, Turtle Island, Sasquatch Island. And what are they using? 30 caliber and 50 caliber Gatling guns and helicopters to eradicate the other tribe, the Sasquatches. Because God forbid, they don't want that race of human identified.
I think you're onto something. I really do, because if it is recognized as another tribe, and I do think honestly the Sasquatch is another type of human. I do think it's another species of human, as that's out there. And if they are recognized, then you're right. It is going to change the face of not only just the GOP, but the whole landscape and the history of not only just our country but the world. And it's going to change everything, all because they're not just limited to North America. I mean,
no,
they're all over the world. And I think that they are a small, and I say smaller, I don't mean as in stature and size. I mean as in population, as opposed to us. And humans have a habit of, no matter where we go, what we do, we're going to take over and develop it and make it into our own version. And in our own history has been dictated by people who have written books based upon their own opinion, which is still being taught today about, the world, about how the world's viewed. You read anything that was written in the 1800s by explorers when they travel the world and they go and meet these other tribes all over the world, Africa, the Middle East, in, South America, over here, North America. And they refer in just the language alone that they use is absolutely embarrassing how they describe them. But the people there at the land, and we were talking about this at the beginning of the episode, they know about these creatures and beings. They know, prime example, you and I both know what a deer looks like. You know what a deer looks like. You know what a bear looks like. You know what an eagle looks like. So you know the difference between an eagle and a thunderbird. You're going to know that. You're going to know the difference between a bear and a Sasquatch. You know, the difference between a person and a bear. And again, so the nays over here, not hairy at all, and you're encountering hairy beings out there who are, in the ranges of, 6 to 12 feet tall. Yes, obviously, there's something to it. But our history, our books, everything that we are taught is based upon what these people thought 300 plus years ago.
We call it the colonialism, the colonial standpoint. You know, you don't get it as much here in the U.S., but up in Canada, my God, they shove colonialism down your throat. You know, and it's and us Indians are fighting against it hand and foot. But you know, like I say, it's, you know, this shows how stupid we are as a species. You know, we, like I was explaining earlier about different varieties of humans 800 years ago, 1,000 years ago, didn't know the others existed in most cases. And yet nowadays we look at this humanoid figure and we put the Jesus Christ complex to it. So biker beards on Sasquatches, I'm totally against it. I'm going to make a t-shirt that says Sasquatch doesn't look like it jumped off the back of a Harley Davidson or walked out of a moonshine camp. You never have that big bearded face because that's indicative of Caucasians. Caucasians were never on North America, but Indians were, and they're don't have facial hair. Sasquatches have been on North America with the Indians for thousands of years, and they have the same trait, no biker hillbilly beard. And when we look at Jesus Christ, you know, pictures of him, he looks like he came out of London, England 2,500 years ago. And he's got white skin. He's got a nice manicured beard and flowing hair. He looks all Caucasian.
Don't forget the blue eyes.
Excuse me, he was born in Jerusalem, as we understand. Shouldn't he look like someone from the Middle East, not someone from downtown London 2,500 years ago?
Yep,
so
I agree.
That's what we're doing with Sasquatch, and that's what I'm trying to rectify and correct and educate humans to start using their frontal lobes. They're supposed to be developed. Sasquatches are humans. They don't have biker beards. And when you look at a Sasquatch, don't look at them like you're the superior bipedal creature of North America, because you are not. They are the superior creature. And I say that because they don't use tools for the most case, which in turn kept them from having weapons. They don't have warfare. We never have heard anything about Sasquatches warring. We have heard about the vocalization, posturing between clan to clan, and it's been recorded en masse. But we have seen some humans witness the odd skirmish between one or two Sasquatches fighting each other, probably for mate and territory. But Sasquatches don't suffer like us with materialism, greed, and envy, because they don't have clothes and they don't have personal items. They live as we are supposed to live and try to live. And it's a bunch of BS and a fallacy, because Greenpeace apparently, after a court order from 10 years ago in a protest in the U.S., has to pay $1 billion and may go bankrupt and disappear. Greenpeace was the one that helped us get on that psyche thinking path of environmentalism, and it helped a lot in many cases. But we've lost our way. And that's why we need to have conclusive proof of the existence of Sasquatch, the other tribe, so we can dummy up and quit damaging the environment and destroying species and making them endangered or extinct, as we're doing.
And you're right. I'm sorry. I was listening. I'm shaking my head. Yes, to everything you're sitting there saying. He's right. Greenpeace did do a lot for the conservation movement and to help them protect the environment. And not only protect the environment, but protect the species that we have. And I do fully believe that Sasquatch is actually one of those species on the planet that has, for some reason, and I don't understand why hundreds of years ago it's been ignored, except for the fact of the matter, it didn't fit a narrative that the original writers of our books, you know, that we go off of, from biology to history to everything, you know, it shakes it up. The platypus was thought to be a joke. The mountain gorilla wasn't recognized until the 1920s. 100 years ago is when the mountain gorilla was like, yes, it's, okay, it exists. Meanwhile, the natives of that area were talking, saying, there's these gorillas over here. And, you know, as you said too, you know, colonism, you know, what they're preaching, they would say, no, you're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. And I think that's happened so much, and that's the belief system that we have today. And I push that issue, not only in my show, but in my personal life as well, that, you know, don't take what these guys wrote 300 years ago as verbatim, because they're writing it from their own egotistical, let's see here, overconfident self-righteousness, I guess is a good, they're I'm
Yeah.
smarter than you kind of thing.
And for the listeners that are listening to this podcast, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And that's why you can join Sasquatch Island on Facebook. Don't ever comment or bring any woo-woo into it, because I'll flush you from the group where I post a picture of you and a Sasquatch sitting on a toilet laughing and you get blocked.
That's
And,
ironic. I work in the porta potty business, so
yeah.
yeah,
And it's,
that's hilarious.
Sasquatch Island, it's all about bringing a whole and different perspective and understanding and beliefs of Sasquatch. So it's totally crittlerist, but I'm bringing a lifetime of, being a commercial fisherman, traveling the coast of British Columbia, going places and having talks with Indian tribes and locals that are encountering Sasquatch for a lifetime. I've done that. And then being a hunting guide for grizzly bears for over 20 years and living in the bush for almost 26 years and being an Indian for 60, but talking to all those other Indian tribes from the Arctic up in northern Canada, right through many states. It's by joining Sasquatch Island, it's the encyclopedia of Sasquatch. Or you can go to sasquatchlegend.com and order my book for $19.99 and we'll ship it to you. But Sasquatch Island, if like one guy, many people have actually said it to me. Wow, took me like maybe 4 months to go right back to the original post. He goes, but my God, you're right. That's the Encyclopedia of Sasquatch. And I have a better understanding. And yes, I think it's going to better my game, definitely, to hopefully get the close encounter of the hairy kind. And that's what I'm doing. So it's like, most guys are in it for profit. And yeah, I make money off Sasquatches. I get a paycheck because I manage SasquatchLegend.com, and I get art I sell with Sasquatches, and I do expeditions here in Forks and on Vancouver Island. And I attend conferences where Peggy and I charge, $1,000 each for going to a conference, plus the hotel and travel and food and vendor table, but Sasquatch is an industry and it's only growing. And whoever's listening to this, if you want to license or print money, contact us and you can open a franchise at SasquatchLegend.com and, do a job that is amazing. I look forward every day when I jump out of bed at 6:30. I'm going to work. I'm going to have fun today. I'm going to make this, and I'm going to meet these interesting people and get paid for it. So, it's Sasquatchology in the industry. I highly recommend it because I'm sure having a good time.
And that's the important part right there. I mean, having a good time. I love doing what I do. Getting people's encounters, getting a chance to go out and research. And I'm doing a lot. Most of everything I do is out of my pocket, and it doesn't bother me one bit because this is a passion of mine. Based upon my own encounters, and trying to bring attention to a point to these creatures and these beings that they are real, they do exist, and they're out there. And in my mind, if we can get them discovered, then maybe we can get them protected, and we can get them the rights that they deserve. And they do. They do deserve rights. They do. They have a right to live on this planet just as much as you and I do.
That's why I made that design that's used for stickers and T-shirts and coffee cups and other things we make. Sasquatch Lives Matter.
I like that one. Sasquatch Lives Matter. I 100% agree. 100%. I could pick your brain. Like, I have so many questions still. Like, I want to know, like, what was your... Okay, so what was the most enlightening encounter that you had? What was the one encounter, if you were to go back and say it was your most life-changing encounter you had?
I guess it would be the first real good one. My first sighting was me and Dad. I was probably about 10, 12 years old, driving down the Vancouver Island Highway at night, come around the corner. We knew the barrier was there and cement garbage can, bear proofing. And we thought it was a human sitting on it. And all of a sudden it put his left arm down, sitting on that guardrail, and it sprung and you could see the hair and everything. It was a Sasquatch. So that was my first one. But I was just a kid, scared the hell out of me. And then early 90s when I was anchored out in the bay with my boat, with my girlfriend and two of my crewmen. I was captain of a commercial salmon seine boat, and we heard and smelled something on the beach. Lit it up with the boat spotlight, and lo and behold, a big male and a female Sasquatch that we observed for 20 minutes because they wouldn't move in the spotlight. Turned the spotlight off, they left, pushed a dead tree down at us. So we figured they were gone, but me and one of the crewmen stayed awake, and an hour and a half later, we saw it again, and that was, you know, it really changed me because, number one, when I got home, I went to visit my parents and my dad, and I was telling them the encounter story. My dad goes, "Oh, that's something." This guy with white hair and a beard showed up. Real excitable guy. I invited him, and his name's Dr. John Bindernagel. He heard that I'd had a Sasquatch encounter, but I didn't. I just saw tracks. So anyway, he came in for coffee, and I met him, but here's his number. You should give him a call. He lives half an hour north of us. So I phoned him, and I met him the next day, and that's when he became a dear friend of mine until he passed. But I tell you, I wish I recorded, even on tape, many times him and I would sit together in his living room or out investigating on one of my boats, all about Sasquatch, as we chattered like two Sasquatches. And he taught me so much. And, you know, he even dragged me to my first ever Sasquatch conference in 1997 in Vancouver, British Columbia.
Oh, wow. That'd be awesome. I relate to the recording part. We'll have discussions sitting down here around the fire. And about an hour and a half into it, I'm like, man, we should have recorded this whole entire conversation because we get just into it and theorize and philosophize about everything. But, you know, the way I look at it, too, though, is that, yeah, it may not have been recorded, but you have that memory to treasure and you have that moment to hold on to that you shared with him and that nobody else can, you know, I mean, that was an awesome moment for you two together.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so you've got, man, I mean, just, and I love how you're just such a good activist about this and you're pushing it out there. Really, you're doing a great job of it, obviously, and you're being quite successful at it, which is important as well. Because, I mean, you're trying to bring awareness to this, and it needs to be brought to it. You know, that's why I go do the research, for the same reason, to bring awareness in, to let people know. And it's an honor to have people come to me and start asking me questions and me to come and speak and give my philosophies on it as well. And you and I share a lot of the same philosophies on these creatures. We really do. And Jacob's right across from me. And the whole entire time you've been talking, I've been sitting there smiling going, yep, yep, that's right there with you. And I am going to order me a Rogue coffee cup off the website. I'm going to. I've been eyeballing it. So when you see the order pop up and you got something going to Arkansas, I just want you to know it's going to be. You know.
Yeah, make sure SasquatchLegend.com.
Exactly.
And we have a big online store. And then me and the team, we do the packaging. I'm mainly me because I'm working 5 days a week. But we call them dailies. Get the email, package the item, and we always put in some Sasquatch stickers for you.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm definitely ordering. Jacob's looking at the website right now. And we're gonna post that on the show notes as well for everybody out there. I mean, yeah, Thomas, this has been an honor to have you on the show. I am extremely honored to have you on here. Thank you so very much for coming on today.
Well, thank you very much for having me. And anytime, give me a shout.
Definitely, I will definitely get you back because we're gonna dig into some of your. When I have you back, we're gonna jump in and dig in deep in some of the encounters and. You know, going out to the woods and everything. And I just want to, you know, bring you to my audience, let my audience get a chance to meet you and hear you and, you know, go check out your website and check out your books and stuff. And we're going to plug everything in for you in the show notes. So that way the descriptions are there and everything. And Thomas, thank you so very much for coming on.
Thank you very much. Don't forget to send me a link so I can post the episode.
I definitely will. All right. Thank you very much, sir. And everybody out there, thank you again for listening to another episode of the Drunken Cryptids.
It's peaceful.